Jillian, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. I think that, as I was telling you before we started recording, that I think copywriting is something we don't give a lot of attention to, but we should. I don't think we understand it. And I don't think we realize how much we need a copywriter on our team to succeed. So, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. I am just going to get to the point. You are a mom, you're a copywriter, and you are a copywriter consultant. And I can't wait to talk about your perspective on things like positioning and messaging. So tell us first, what is a positioning expert? Because you're known as that. And you're also known for high performance sales copywriting and positioning. So, can you tell us what that is and what that means for business owners?
Sure, I'd love to. So I claimed the title positioning expert because I found over years that it's interesting, right? People think that they need better copywriting. They're like, I
Mhm.
need better copy. We hear it all the time. My copywriting, my messaging, my copywriting. And so people think, all right, I need to publish better copy. And they think that because, right, they're after more people signing up for their memberships and, making more impact and bringing people into their group programs or bringing people into their high level offers, even if it's low ticket, right? All of these offers requires messaging and copywriting. So people will say, I need better copy, and they'll come to me, or they'll be working on this stuff with a business coach or someone like a friend, a colleague. And what happens a lot of the time is their positioning uh isn't going to take them to their goals. And their current positioning in the marketplace is actually kind of some iteration of where they were a year or two ago. And their messaging and copywriting is not actually it's not in alignment with where they're going, if that makes sense. So the way that it works in my world is it's positioning first. Well, actually, it's self-worth first. So self-worth in terms of your career and, your field,
Mhm.
self-worth, and then positioning, and then copywriting. So it just happens to be the case that when, someone thinks what they need is better copy, they end up coming into a space with me, and I'm asking questions, which is part of a copywriter's job. I'll ask questions, what are your goals? What's your vision for 5 years? Just all kinds of questions, trying to get under the hood of what they're trying to create in the world, what kind of difference they're trying to make, what kind of offers they're putting out there. And so positioning really is uh, fundamental to the copywriting component. And so we have to start there. Another way to put it is positioning would be not only your position in the marketplace, but positioning is also the kind of the way your offers are packaged, and the kind of like what kind of shelf is your offer on, what kind of light is on your offer, what is the whole energy around your position in the marketplace. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Could it, could you maybe give us some examples? And one that is kind of coming to mind is maybe like creating an offer and what value does it have? Or who is it that you're, so I think ultimately what you're trying to get to is who are you attracting? Who are you wanting to attract versus who you're attracting with how your offer is presented. Does that, am I
Yes.
reflecting that back right?
Yes, you're onto it. So here's a great example, and this is from my own business, right? There, I have high level done for you services that make sense for a busy entrepreneur who is either going to multi six figures or up. And then I have offers for startups.
Mhm.
And the positioning that like I couldn't bring the positioning I had in my former coaching business, because I actually had a former coaching business that I ran at a six-figure level. And my first six-figure year was 2017. I took that into 2018. your traditional coaching model with a group program, a digital course. Anyway, I couldn't take my positioning working with startups. I couldn't really take that into my positioning with the done for you high level service. And so what had to happen was a reorientation of who am I working with? Who
Mm-hmm.
does this service or this offer benefit the most? What kind of caliber person am I wanting to appeal to or be attractive to here? What
Mm-hmm.
are the characteristics that this person has? And what are the things that this person values in a service provider, or you could put your own spin on that. You could put your own title there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, yeah, it goes back to the client. Who is the person for
Mm-hmm.
this particular offer?
Mm-hmm. I love that you're asking your clients to be intentional, which I think is so important in anything we do in a business. But for somebody who might be just starting out with thinking about their copywriting and positioning, do you have some general categories like you mentioned, like startup or maybe a higher level offer? Are there maybe some general categories that they can begin to kind of think about what bucket they might be putting their positioning in?
Well, positioning matters at every single level.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if someone is starting out and they're thinking about their positioning, I would naturally want to ask them questions and guide them towards positioning themselves for an action taker. And there's
Mm-hmm.
action takers at every level. So you really want to think about the kind of person that's going to buy and do the work, engage in the material, get the results. And so at every level, that matters.
Mm-hmm.
So with someone who's just starting out, I'd be going more into not necessarily the level, it doesn't have to be levels of income or levels of money, but it's more so those characteristics like what is this person? How do they operate? What do they appreciate? How can you stand out as the obvious choice for that person? And there are answers and differentiators and components that you can explain in your messaging, convey in your messaging, uh, whether you're brand new or you're seasoned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like that point too, because ultimately, I think every business owner needs a client or a customer to take an action. So, if you're not motivating them to do something, then, I mean, that's gonna reevaluate what your point is. But you kind of touched on it when you were talking about positioning, but you're also really intentional about the energy that you put in the messaging. So, can you break down what that means and how our energy translates into the way that we write and communicate with our clients?
100%. So, energy speaking, it's really important that whoever is writing, the person who's writing the copy or the person who's putting the offers out there, right? The founder, the leader in the business, it's really important that that person feels confident
Mhm.
in what they're conveying is the result that the client or the customer is leaning into or starting to achieve, right? So if the person, the business leader, doesn't feel like fully, if they don't feel congruent, if they don't feel on board, if they feel hesitation, if they're uncertain, that kind of bleeds through frequently, typically into copywriting and messaging. And
Mhm.
so I sometimes come in and clean up a little bit of this hesitation energy or this lack of confidence, which the way that it manifests is uh, the invitation to step into the offer isn't bold.
Mhm.
It's not clear. It's not juicy. It's kind of missing some kind of not allure, but it's missing something. And
Mhm.
so it is really important to make sure that you're, the perfect example for this is price. If there's not an internal click that this is the price that, you're confident you stand behind,
Mhm.
you know, you need to examine that and make sure, if you have to come down till you feel the click, come down. Um, there's a lot of people who will, like business coaches will push people to go higher. And I know on one hand, that's their job, right? On the other hand, we are looking for that click. It's got to feel good and right. So that the price component is just one example. You want to feel comfortable with the case you're making for your offer, for the argument, quote unquote, that you're making for why someone should step inside and what they're going to experience on the tail end of working with you.
Hmm. I think that that's such great advice that we don't often hear. We often, in like the coaching space or the entrepreneurial space, we just say, here, do this. Like there's a recipe and there's this formula and you just apply it and magic happens for you. And so I love that I'm such a proponent of having female entrepreneurs and mom entrepreneurs connect with themselves and their intuition and like what feels right. And, because I don't think there is this magic recipe. I don't think that there is this one size fits all approach to business at all, especially for, complex, women that I think we all are. And so we're all so different and multifaceted. And I really like to highlight any opportunity where I'm like, see, you need to connect with yourself and do what's right. Because I talk to so many women who are frustrated because they're doing all the things and they don't know why it's not working, and they don't have the connection with themselves to go, this doesn't feel right, and this is not really where I think I am. So I equally think that that's very important. um so let's talk about signal positioning. I'm really interested in this concept to encourage people to take that rapid buying action that we often see so many people talk about. But how can we approach it ethically, and exactly what is it, and how can it be something that not only helps people take action, but we're also confident that it's the right fit for the people who are taking action?
I love that you brought that last question up. I was almost anticipating that. Yes. So signal positioning is really simply, signal positioning is taking your offer and, I'm going to assume that people listening have a variety of offers. You can go through signal positioning with one offer at a time. You don't have to change the face of your business overnight. You can just steadily move through your offer suite at your own pace, no rush. But what signal positioning is it's an upgrade in your sales flow and sales process by changing or realigning the offer's name and the energy of the offer, right? If you have banner images and you have a name and you have an overall presentation of the offer, what signal positioning is taking that and making sure that it is an identity related claim that your person can step into. So people are moving fast. They're scanning sales pages fast. They're scanning your emails fast. We really just want to make it easier than ever for the person to see your offer and identify with it or not, and identify with it as their future or not. And the beautiful thing about this that I absolutely love is I believe that a client or customer's transformation begins with the copy. And so I fully feel fulfilled with my role as a copywriter with my clients, knowing I'm part of that transformation, that transformative experience of the customer and client, because I'm guiding a decision-making process and putting their future in front of them and inviting them to say yes to what they truly, deeply want. And it works. This works so much easier when we use the signal positioning framework to set up the offer to be a claim the person is making. And that claim is tied to identity. So, an example of this is And this is amazing, actually. I just picked up a book. It's called Magic Words. It's by Jonah something. I don't want to get his name wrong, but he's written quite a few books. He does it on social media. This seems to be more of a traditional author. And this book, Magic Words, I looked at it a couple times. I didn't want to buy it because I like to stay in my own lane. It's just wild how much this book is affirming what I've come to figure out through my own trial and error as an entrepreneur. The offers that are positioned as an identity claim sell way better, way faster, and the people that sign up are so much more invested in their future because
Hmm.
they're reaching out and they're grabbing that future. They're making that claim. So anything like identity related. And there's names coming to mind that are kind of like current projects on my desk that I don't necessarily feel like I should disclose yet. Like offer names that are kind of like behind the scenes right now.
Hmm.
But is this making sense so far, the signal positioning?
I think it is, but you anticipated my question of like some examples of like an offer that would, you know, like the name of an offer that would claim a transformation. Um,
Yes. So, okay. I'll use one from my own offer suite to just make sure So I had back in the day, I wrote this book called The Vital Mother Book Project.
mhm,
And I had people on a subscription model and they were paying for one chapter a month, and I would release a chapter a month. And the offer name is an identity claim, the vital mother. So the
mhm,
claim there is vitality as a mother, health, vitality.
mhm,
There are offer names that are in kind of like the business coaching space where they'll say something like, gosh, this is just so cheesy and like, but it's going to give the example like cash money queen, like,
gotcha.
sales queen, sales leader, like, the person doesn't want the 12-month coaching program. Like,
Mhm,
they want the future reality that they're claiming. And some offer names, this is more subtle than others. Like the Vital Mother Book Project was a little bit more subtle. Some of them are a little bit more flashy, but that just depends on the business owner's branding, their
mhm,
overall messaging, and their overall offer suite.
mhm.
Uh, but is it clicking yet?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think we often hear in marketing and copywriting to lead with the transformation. But I don't think we all necessarily think about including that in how we name our offers, which I think, it's really interesting. And so have you seen yourself that these offers that kind of encompass the transformation that clients are buying into sell faster?
Yes, there's less friction in the sales
Mm-hmm.
process.
Mm-hmm.
There's less back and forth questions a lot of the time, which that can go to other factors too. But there's just overall less friction. There's more excitement about taking the seat, making the claim, because they're making a declaration to themselves that
Mm-hmm.
this is what I'm stepping into and this is what I desire. I do like to have a name formula where it is a signal positioning, kind of an identity, like a vibey type name, future oriented type name with a subtitle that does express the what. So another example right now is I have a service that's called the High Performance Sales Page Service,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a what name. That name needs to be run through the signal positioning framework because I've gotten it to a certain level of success. I've proven an 85 percent success rate with it, but now it's time to optimize for faster buying and conversions, which is taking it through the signal positioning framework and changing it to be something more like, breakthrough launch copy or breakthrough, it's time to take it
Mm-hmm.
and elevate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that that's That is a really powerful way to look at the offers you're creating, and not and being really intentional, which I think is just like the point. You know, who are you serving? How are you serving? And what's the transformation you're offering? And there's so much noise, and we wear so many hats, and we're thinking about so much when we're, putting our offers out there, that I think it's just a really powerful way to rethink how you are um, positioning yourself, as you say.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, as a confidence coach, I really love, it's so juicy when you started talking about, the confidence of the person who's putting out their offer. And so many women struggle with confidence. I struggled with confidence when I started this podcast. And, when it comes to selling, that is, people feel really icky, and they are so afraid of rejection and all the things. So, high performance sales copy is an extension of confidence, like you mentioned. People who read what you're writing and put out there can really get a sense of the essence of the intention with which it was created, and the outcome. So how can we channel more confidence in our copy and really present a strong and bold transformation in what we're putting out there?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I definitely relate to someone who, is in a space of, uh, struggling with confidence or struggling with how to communicate and offer. And what I can say is the easiest and most effective way to really anchor into that confidence or channel that confidence, as you say, is to rely on your social proof. And if you don't have enough of it, you need to do everything you can to get more of it this week, next week, get it. And that is, for me, I'm an introvert, I'm kind of shy. I am not the kind of person who is naturally, you know, wanting to flaunt herself on the internet. That kind of gives me a feeling of I'm uncomfortable. I don't really want to, flash myself or my life. And I just rely on my clients' testimonials over and over and over again. And this when I have struggled to have testimonials for a new offer, I create a way to get some testimonials. I'll
Mhm.
get, 5 people, do this thing with me, get into this call with me. I'm going to give you this PDF. I want to get your feedback. Just be proactive about getting social proof. It doesn't need to be complicated. People want to engage with you, work with you at all different levels. And so
Mhm.
use that social proof.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that you mentioned that people do want to engage with you and help support you. I think it's so, especially when you're an online business owner, it can be really isolating. And so, we can really have this sense that we're all alone on this little business island. And, this conversation is proof that we're absolutely not. And so I love that you talk about getting, social proof for what you're doing, but, offering some suggestions on the way to do that. And it's just one of the most difficult things to do when you're just starting out. But it's just really rewarding. And I always recommend save those for when you're having a rough day. You can read them.
Yes, I just went through and read some and was like, I was so lifted by that. And those wins that you've helped people create, they carry on into the future. If you had helped someone create a win in 2019, that
Hmm.
win, it's still valid. It's
Yeah.
still relevant. It's a cumulative bank of these
Mhm.
experiences, so I think that it's so much easier to step outside of your own head and your body and use
Mhm.
those words from other people to help you, put your shoulders back and move forward.
Right. And we just so discount the things that we find easy too.
True.
So we think, ah, it's not a big deal, but yeah, it probably is a really big deal to somebody else. Um, but as moms, just like you and I are, we are juggling so much with our businesses and all of those things. What are some tips for how we can streamline our copywriting and maybe simplify it so it doesn't seem so overwhelming?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I can say that the easiest way for a business owner, for an entrepreneur, for a busy mom entrepreneur to organize herself with her copywriting is one, you don't want to wait until the last minute. Don't wing it at the last minute. You want to look at your calendar and make sure that you are scheduling a voice of customer research week. Make sure you're interviewing customers who've gone through your offer and asking them specific questions about their motivations and their desires, even if you think you know. Ask them, did they have any hesitations before buying? Like if so, what were your hesitations? What were your hangups? The answers you get will floor you and will cause you to change your sales page. And at least put those answers on the sales page in the FAQ section, right? So you want to do voice of customer research before you do any writing. And I just personally, because I'm a busy mom, I do the research week all by itself. That week, my only job is to interview people. I do a minimum of 3. The next week is a writing week, and I do my writing that week. And then this is for a client, I do the revisions the next week. So I kind of break it all up. If I'm doing my own copy, I can do the writing and the revisions all in one sitting because it's just me. I'm just going back and forth with myself, right? So I just recommend giving yourself the space to do your copy before go time and bank on that research.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And that can be really daunting to talk to somebody and even get like maybe the things that made them hesitate about an offer.
Oh, the answers are so good. It's so worth it. But yeah, it is. And the way I frame it is I do this for clients, so I kind of come in, but the way I frame it is I'm going to ask you a series of questions that are going to help me help more people just like you. And I just make sure to thank them so much for being
Mhm.
there. And
Yeah.
sometimes I give them a kickback, like something cool for being there with me.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's cool. And you can do these in
Hmm.
20 minutes. No, and you don't even need to do video if you don't
Hmm.
want to. Like, let's
Hmm.
just say too much video burns you out. You could just do audio if you want.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's, I love that you're a couple of things. You're mentioning like continue to build that relationship. And two, like I've even reached out to people who maybe didn't take my offer and they feel bad for like taking my time, but they don't realize how valuable that is. And just learning, like, was it something with your offer? Was it something just like their time, their position in life, or their what their schedule is like or whatever. And like you said, that is so valuable to learn. And ultimately, sometimes you might be beating yourself up about something and you shouldn't be. And, it's just data. And we don't need to put so much meaning behind that. And it can really benefit us. Well, I don't think I can have a conversation with a copywriter without talking about storytelling, right?
Right.
And so, I mean, you've helped hundreds of clients in several countries. And what's the most powerful storytelling strategy that we could kind of utilize in our businesses? And I don't know, I think for me, sometimes I get overwhelmed because I think I've got to have all of these stories, or I have a lot of stories. What are some of kind of the buckets of stories that maybe we want to cultivate to be able to connect with our customers better?
Yeah, this is a great question. So, what I like to do is I like to do an exercise where you think about if you had 3 minutes on national television. And that was it. And there was no other airtime. What story would you tell? So I'll just throw that out there. And I want everybody to do this exercise, who's listening, take the time to think about really what would I share? What story comes to mind? We're intuitive, like you said. You may have something come up that's spot on. What I'll do is I'll follow up with what I like to do with my clients is I like to ask them that question, and then I like to guide them into the awareness that the reader benefits from seeing herself win in your story. So, what story are you telling or can you tell that demonstrates yourself winning in some way, right? You're winning, you're overcoming some challenge, some kind of, I'm not going to say drama, but there's some turmoil, there's something. And then you overcome and you're winning. You've won something. This doesn't need to be in this could be in any niche, in any industry, right? But what has to happen is the reader needs to see herself winning in that story. And that's the beginning of brand loyalty. And that's the beginning of kind of a transformational door opening. This person is now, it's about her, it's about the reader. So it's not necessarily about asking, like, what story can I tell to connect? It's what story does the reader see herself in?
Hmm. Okay. So I'm thinking, do you mean like telling a story about your own evolution that somebody could deeply relate to? Like they relate to the position where you started and they want to end up where you did.
Well, this is a great question. So I choose different stories for each offer.
Hmm.
So on every single sales page, I'm going through this process of asking myself, what story does the reader need to hear to see, this transformational story? So each offer technically has its own perfect fit story. And then there's the wider kind of brand messaging story. And a great book for this is, I think it's called Brand Story. And you know, this book helps you break this framework down, and it would be great for anyone redoing their web copy, that book.
Mhm.
So there's that larger kind of overarching brand story, but each individual sales page has a transformational story on it. And so on some of my sales pages, I tell a story of a breakthrough launch, and what it was like for me to experience that breakthrough launch, and just what happened in my body and how it was overwhelming and how I had to lay on the floor because I was in shock and panic. I didn't believe it could be possible to, why would people pay me to do this? Well, so the reader reads that story and can see herself winning, basically.
Hmm. I like that. So we're coming up a little bit against time, but I wanted to be able to give listeners some takeaways on how they can actually improve their own copywriting. And I think we all, can do that at various times. But so yeah, can you like pull into your toolbox and give us a few tips that can help us shift how we're communicating our copywriting to improve it and connect better with our potential clients?
Yes, I can give you 3 tips. You got it. So I will say this. The number one tip in copywriting is to appeal to self-interest. So you want to make sure before you're publishing something that you're doing a good job of appealing to what the reader wants. So we tend to start our emails and start writing with our experience and why we're selling our offer, why we're so passionate about it, and all this stuff. we need to flip that around and we need to start with appealing to self-interest. If you can just check that every single time you write an email and make sure you're appealing to self-interest close to the top, right? Because people are scrolling, people are overwhelmed with the amount of reading and content coming in front of them. And it's just better to lead with what's in it for them
Mm-hmm.
most of the time. You could totally break the rule, 20% of the time and go off rogue and do whatever. But for most of the time, you want to appeal to self-interest first. Um, the other tip, or the next tip of three, would be to cut out words like please. And I know that sounds odd, and that's a very specific tip, but I find a lot of my clients will put like certain things. They'll say like, please click here if you're interested, or if you please, if you'd like to inquire. It's just so polite and so the antithesis of copywriting. And so what we want to do is we just want to be super direct. Click here, sign up here, take your seat. You can, have your button copy. I'm ready. I'm ready, Angela. I'm ready, Jillian. I'm ready. Just cut out a lot of this like polite fluff. There needs to be a copywriting voice developed, and that voice's job is to be very direct and just point the people in the right direction and be a good editor in that department. I'd like to tell people, to be confident and direct with that voice. And so it's just cutting those extra words out. The third tip would be, what can I give you for the third tip on good copywriting? Um, Bullets. Juice up your bullets. Teaser bullets, they're called. And what you want your teaser bullets to do is you want your bullets to invoke curiosity about, maybe it's your method or your, framework. Or this is where we can actually we can have a lot of fun with intellectual property, my clients and I, because you have things you've discovered that are unique to you and your experience, and you can do a great job of communicating those through a methodology or a framework or a system. My one client and I, we worked on something like her 5-phase freedom blank blank framework, and it was something that's taken her years to develop, but she wasn't even communicating it well. She wasn't communicating it at all, actually, because she just is so busy that she doesn't have the capacity to stop and go back to some of these things, right? So use bullet points to invoke curiosity, lean on methodologies or frameworks, work on developing those things that are specific to you, that intellectual property.
Mm-hmm. I think that that's a wonderful idea. And like we were talking about, we don't think about what we do instinctively as really like that important or special, or even, we
Yeah.
have that complexity bias, or, it's got to be hard. But little systems like that we've developed for ourselves can be super powerful, and a great way to distinguish yourself in a marketplace that seems full of people that might do something similar or the same as you do. Well, I also want to work in a little bit about you being a mom entrepreneur, and I love to hear what's working, what's helping you find more harmony between being a mom and an entrepreneur, or just something that would be helpful to listeners you think that you've discovered that helps you manage it.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's so important for, the women listening to remember that motherhood is seasonal. There
Mm,
are very intense seasons of motherhood. And then there are some seasons where there's more space.
mm,
And I try to remind myself, my kids are 11 and 5, and I am coming out of a season where I really had a lot of space to, with my daughter's, blossoming independence, to really buckle down and get a number of things accomplished in my business. And now that I've done that, I'm opening up a new season where I can determine, all right, what's the focus of this season? How do I want this to look like? So I do think that broader context is important for me personally, having a child from the age 0 to 3 means I'm kind of in maintenance mode with business. Like I'm just maintaining, I'm just trying to like the growth is happening for the infant and the business is just maintaining, you know. So I want another child. I do, and I'm sprinting right now so that I just kind of quote unquote get ahead a little bit, and when that season comes, I can drop into that season a little bit more fully. So, I could say other things like I'm a time blocking mom. I like to time block. I don't like a rigid, time when I have to be places, but I genuinely like to know what I'm doing in the morning, what's happening at lunch, what's happening after lunch, and then I can just go on autopilot a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I think those are all great things to share. I mean, not only is motherhood seasonal with the age of your children, but literally seasonal. Like, oh, we might have like during the holidays, like there is no time for anything. Like I've just realized I can't do much between like mid-November and mid-January. It's like not
Yeah.
happening.
Right, like getting to know those seasons in your life and then
Yeah.
just planning for them. Like the summer last year was so interesting. Similarly, I learned a lot about what June and July is for me.
Mm-hmm.
And August, I just learned a lot last season. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so just being aware of like, okay, this is how I'm feeling, and the next go around, I want
Yes.
this to be different, or no, this was great. But I just love time audits to help with that too, you know. I mean, they're so helpful. Jillian, you've shared so many great tips for us, and I just love your perspective on I really the intentionality of what we're doing in our business and how we're communicating that. And I think it's so important. And you're showing that intentionality with how you are operating as a mom and a business owner. How we do one thing is how we do all things. And so I think that's so important. But do you have any takeaways that you would like to leave with listeners?
Yeah. I would like the listeners to, really look around and look for the proof in your life and your business that you're good enough, that you're worthy of growth, that your goals matter, that you have, created impact in even if you're just pushing forward onto the next thing, it's just so important to stop and recognize all that you've created and all the ideas you've taken action on and all the risks you've taken, the rooms you've put yourself in. I just want everyone to really acknowledge those things and let it accumulate in your body for a little bit. Feel it and take action from that place of feeling full, feeling that feeling.
That's a beautiful reminder. And I think also remembering to communicate that in your copywriting, like shine, let yourself share it with people. And I think so often we don't do that enough. We're not good at like selling our wins and things like that. And so I think it's a beautiful reminder. Thank you so much, Jillian. Where can listeners connect with you and learn more about what you do?
Sure. So I'm at on Instagram at Jillian A. Anderson. I've been on there for years. It's an optional space for me. So I pop in, I come out because I have some SEO stuff going on, which is great. So Instagram, and then I am on Threads. It's the same handle. That's cool. I'm exploring that because I'm a writer, so it's no visual content required, So that's at Jillian A. Anderson. And then just my website is www.jillian-anderson.com and that's where all of my that's my home online.
I love that. I love that you mentioned that Instagram is an optional space for you.
Oh yeah. Oh
You're
yeah.
you're not a devotee and live your life on Instagram. So, because
Ooh, that's tough.
yeah, that's so draining. I don't know how anybody does that. Kudos to you if you can do that and survive. But
Yes.
Well, it was been a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Angela.